Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is Airbnb reviews. If you are one of the many listeners that have short-term rentals hosted by Airbnb, it is really important to pay attention to guest reviews. You absolutely have the right to refuse a guest from booking your place if they have previous bad reviews. Something else to think about is guests that have no reviews. Now, I'm not talking about the people that just joined Airbnb that month. I'm talking about the guests that have been on Airbnb for years with no reviews. I want to let you in on a little secret. Guests, and hosts for that matter, can always dispute a review. Many times Airbnb will simply remove that review. I had a guest recently submit an inquiry stating that they were a chef and wanted to know if we had a kitchen. If they looked at any of the photos, they would clearly see we have a kitchen. I replied, yes, we do have a kitchen. Then the guest asked if she could bring her emotional support dog. All right, again, I wonder what she's even looking at because we promote our cabin as a dog friendly, so asking was not even necessary. I then took a minute and pulled her profile. She has had an Airbnb account for 6 years and no reviews. Luckily, during all of this back and forth inquiries, another guest booked it. I submitted the conversation to Airbnb and stated I felt uncomfortable renting to someone without any reviews, so now she is blocked from booking our cabin. So, if you want to avoid a situation where a guest might be a tad cray-cray, keep a close eye on those reviews. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Mark Abramovich. Mark is a lender, investor, speaker who graduated with honors from Brooklyn Technical High School in 1997, followed by a Bachelor of Industrial Design combining art with engineering degree from Pratt Institute in 2001. After several years in real estate, Mark founded MIRS Group in 2018 with a focus on lending and the vitally important deal analysis and deal structure. We have been crossing paths for years, so it is my pleasure to have him on the show. So welcome, Mark.
Jen, it is an absolute pleasure to be here.
I am so excited to have you. And even just starting our Zoom call, I was like, ooh, I want to talk about that. Ooh, I want to. So I was like, just save it for the recording. So this is going to be so great. And we are going to be talking about lending today, which is so important for the listeners. So you started early 2000s in real estate. Tell me how you got involved with real estate.
By accident. It was, it really was by accident. We were, we were at my friend's. So we lived in New York. And for those who are from the Northeast, New York area, that there's the Pocono Mountains where a lot of New Yorkers will go for vacation. So my friend's parents purchased a trailer in a lake community, up there, Eagle Lake. And they purchased a trailer and we were hanging out on their deck. Basically, we had come up, for the long weekend. We're hanging out on the deck and, grilling and enjoying the sun. And the question came up, I wonder if we bought one of these, would people rent it to come up here? Yeah. All right. Let's pool our money together and buy one. I mean, that's really how we started. We knew nothing about it. Uh, in hindsight, I wish I had known about, just a simple combination lockbox would have made our lives easier, but I knew nothing. I mean, it's scary to think of how little we knew. Not to say that I know a lot today, but at least speaking of networks, right? Having the ability to reach out to people and ask them questions today, it's great. Back then, I didn't have anybody to ask. The internet was not what it is today. Yes, I'm that old. I was around for, Windows 95, not because it's the 95th version, but because it came out in 1995. So we didn't know anything, but that's how we started.
I can remember in college taking a course. I'm aging myself as well here. About teaching the World Wide Web in the classroom. And I was like, no one's going to use this shit in a classroom. Come on. So that ages me right there. I went to school to be a teacher. So where that came from.
Well, listen, today, so a little bit about systems, we'll jump ahead a little bit to systems. I see a lot of people's emails. And, I'll see such and such redevelopment company or investing company at Google, at gmail.com. Okay. Which in and of itself, it's kind of like
rookie.
Spend, it's funny. You see people with 20, 30 years of experience now, but they've used that email for so long that they're stuck with it. But okay, fine. Gmail.com. I still see AOL.com.
I just broke up with AOL like 3 years ago. I'm just saying, because that was my go-to. And well, it was for my junk mail for a long time. That's why I kind of held on to that one. But yes, AOL was with me for a long time.
You no longer got mail.
Exactly. So, Mark, I'm thrilled to have you on here. We're going to talk about lending today. First, Tell me, what does MIRS stand for? And do you say MIRS? You don't say MIRS.
Yep. It stands for MIRS.
Okay.
So there's two meanings. The number one meaning is it's Mark, Inga, Robert, Sebastian Group. So that's our family initials, and that's what it stands for. But additionally, my wife and I, we come from the Soviet Union, not Russia, not Ukraine, not Belarus. We literally come from the Soviet Union. We both immigrated, or at least in my case, I immigrated before the fall of the Soviet Union. So I literally left the Soviet Union. So we all speak Russian. And in Russian, if you know the Mir space station, it means world, it means peace. So it was a double meaning to the name MIRS Group.
I love that. When did you move here?
1988.
Wow.
Yeah. Gorbachev talked about perestroika, and then, Reagan pressured him to let people out of the Soviet Union. And after my parents had been refused exit in 1981, so for 7 years, they were known as the refuseniks. And finally, in 1988, we left and, arrived in the U.S. Talk about culture shock.
I bet. So, and where did you landed in New York?
We landed. So actually back then, immigration was not a direct flight. So you actually left the Soviet Union. You would come to Austria first, meet with the consul there. Then after Austria, you would come to Italy, and Italy was the staging spot, basically, where people were waiting for their interviews with the ambassador, consul, whoever it was, and would be granted permission to enter the United States. So we didn't just, kind of meander through a border and go at it that way. It was rather you were waiting for an interview. Wow. and to be granted permission to enter the country. But I have to tell you, after living in the Soviet Union the cold, everybody asks about the cold. Yes, it was cold in the winter. Yes, it was hot in the summer. That's not the thing. The part that's mind-boggling, especially in hindsight of 30 plus years in the US, it's the waiting in lines for food in the cold, right? And then you're not guaranteed that there would be food when you would finally get there, right? So imagine going from that to spending 3 months in Austria and Italy in June, July, August. Okay. So imagine you go from the Soviet Union, from the, what you can imagine as they were never communist. They were actually socialist, building towards communism, whatever. Hey, hunger is hunger. Lack of electricity is lack
Right.
of electricity. And you go from that to showing up in Europe in the 80s, right? And it's the land of plenty.
Right.
So, and in Italy, we were actually living a block away from the beach. So we went from the Soviet Union to I'm in Italy on the beach in the summer. Life's good. So,
But
and
when you
then
came to the
yes,
US, you
mhm,
landed in New York.
yep,
Okay.
JFK, and then we ended up yes, stereotypical Brighton Beach in Brooklyn, fall of 1988. It was pretty wild. Little Odessa. It was
Wow.
kind of like, wow, we left the Soviet Union and here we are again.
And
Pretty wild.
that is wild. Wow. Well, we
Yeah,
are lucky to have you here. And let's dive in. So,
sure.
you are a lender, correct?
Yes. And I will specify two things. I broker and I lend directly.
And
Okay.
by
So, yes,
brokering, people give you their money to pimp out.
mm, to some extent, but predominantly, it's what's known as hard money. Rather, I have larger capital sources. I work with bigger companies. And so the money that I'm pimping out, I love that. I'm going to have to keep using that now. The money that I'm pimping out is really much deeper pockets.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I was always curious where they had their money from. So
Hmm.
you're considered a hard money lender.
Yep.
And then what was the second thing you said?
So I do direct lend my own money as well.
Got it.
My IRA is out there. My personal cash is out there. So yes, you know, um, my own capital is out there. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Got it. So a huge question
Hmm.
is what makes a good borrower? Meaning, what do you look for in people where you're like, this one is going to be great. I'm definitely going to lend on this deal. So, what are some things that you specifically look for?
So past experience with me is definitely preferable. At the same time, obviously, somehow we have to cross that. With some people, I've crossed that first threshold somehow. Knowing their numbers, it's really funny. Shark Tank, watching it. You know, my wife and I, we didn't just watch it, right? I don't just watch Shark Tank. I binge, and when you binge on any show, little by little, you start seeing the patterns emerge, right? It's not about the individual episode, it's about the pattern. And the pattern in Shark Tank that spoke to me always is when Mr. Wonderful, right? Kevin O'Leary turns around and goes, "What are your numbers? I don't care about anything else. I want the numbers
Right.
on your business." Well, it's the numbers on the deal. You can't have wishy-washiness. Well, we think we're going to have this much profit. No, I need your analysis. What's the purchase price? What's the rehab amount? What's the after repair value? How long are you going to hold it? Those details are what tells me if this is going to be good or bad.
Very good. And how do they present this to you? Is it in a Excel file? Are they sharing pictures, doing a
No,
whole presentation? What do you look for?
no. I have a deal form that I built out on my website. There's two deal forms. One is for buy and hold, and one is for fix and flip. And realistically, in real estate, right? When you're investing in real estate, there's kind of one of two paths that you typically take. You're either flipping it, right? You're buying it, adding some value and selling it off, or you're holding it for whatever the reason, right? Whether it's appreciation or cash flow, but you're holding it.
Right.
So I have two forms built out. One is for fix and flip, one is for buy and hold. That form will give me enough information to at least throw it into my deal analyzer to see whether the numbers make sense. From there, we can have a conversation. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, do you want my comps? Do you want my CMAs? No, because I'm going to do an appraisal. It doesn't matter if it's my money or if it's hard money
Right.
or if it's Uncle Vinny's money. Maybe not the best path, but, you know, uh, so I'm always going to do an appraisal, right? So the appraiser is going to be the one who gives me the values of the property to confirm it for me.
Got it. And that is a professional company who you trust to come out and do the actual valuation of the
Right.
property.
Independent third-party appraiser. Typically, I don't go looking. Look, I work nationwide, almost nationwide. There's a couple of states we don't touch, but whatever. That's always in flux, right? Find me the right hard money company that does all 50 states. I'll do all 50 states. But the way we order appraisals is through Appraisal Nation. They're an AMC appraisal management company. So they're essentially a middleman for appraisals, right? I go to them, I order an appraisal, they find the local appraiser gives a quote. Me and the borrower basically say, yeah, okay, or we don't even necessarily see the multiple quotes, just one of them is the best. Let's say they're the cheapest and fastest. Okay, done. So at that point, the payment link goes directly to the borrower. The borrower pays, the appraiser does the appraisal. What's funny is I don't even know who the appraiser is until the report comes in. It's blind to me. I have no input on, typically I have no input on who it is, right? That's the whole point. It's an independent third party that's impartial, giving a value.
All right. So to go a step further, I am an experienced investor. Mm-hmm. What would you say to the newer investors? Would you ever lend to a first-time investor?
I have.
Oh,
yes.
Very good.
I would.
What advice do you have for them, though?
So, know your numbers. Know your numbers. Run the deal analysis and underwriting on your deal yourself. Know the numbers inside and out. Big kind of oversight I see frequently is, especially with newer investors, they forget the holding time to sell the property after rehab is done.
Yes.
So if you're, whatever the construction is, right? We can discuss, okay, not we can discuss, let's discuss it. How long is holding time? So let's say for a fix and flip, how do you calculate holding time? Well, there's some amount, we take the renovation budget and we say that, okay, it's going to be roughly a week for every $5,000 that you need to spend. Okay. Right. Some have more aggressive schedules. Some have less aggressive schedules, but let's just say $5,000. Okay. So for every $5,000, it's a week of holding time. So let's say the budget is $15,000. So that's 3 weeks of holding just to do the renovation. Mm-hmm. After that, I round up the number to the nearest largest month. So let's say it's 1 month of holding just for the renovation. Okay. And that week will be absorbed by delays if you need to get a permit. Okay. So we've got a month. Then let's say it's a month to find a buyer. Now, I understand these days it's kind of crazy. Some places you can find a buyer in days. Let's just say it's a month. Let's say they have some issue with financing, so you're going to have to find another buyer. So let's just say it's a month for holding just to find the buyer. So that's now 2 months. And then from there, the buyer needs to get a mortgage typically.
Right.
Well, how long does a mortgage take? 2 to 3 months. Now, so that 2 to 3 months means the holding time for the property is 4 to 5 months long, because while the buyer is waiting for the mortgage, guess what the borrower is still doing? They're paying interest.
Exactly. But why do you say 2 to 3 months? Because typically when we get if we're selling a property, it's like a 30-day close. So we get it under contract and then because they're pre-approved, is that why it goes a little quicker or what?
No, I'm saying it's 30 days to find a buyer.
Right.
And I'm saying it's 2 to 3 months for the bank mortgage to close. How long does a bank mortgage take? Right? You go to a bank for a mortgage on your house, right? You're buying a house. How long does that mortgage process take? 45 days to 60 easily?
Well, I mean, it's taken us three to 4 weeks.
It's taken you to 3 to 4 weeks. You have not hard money. I'm talking about the actual financing.
The mortgage, like Bank of America.
Then they've cleaned up. Then they've gotten a lot faster.
I'm like, what? 45 to 60 days? Because that's just a 30-day close. And In fact, we have one under contract right now, and it's a
Yep.
5-week close. So
Okay.
they have it under contract, but they're closing, and they're doing a DSCR loan to purchase this property from us. So
That's why it's a little maybe faster.
okay. But even like when we're flipping condos or townhomes or, single family homes, it's still typically about 30 days just because they've gone through that pre-approval process. They have started that paperwork. So maybe that's taken off some of the time right there. All right.
Maybe it's taking it off and you're dealing with a better bank. Fantastic. Either way. And here's my point. So, okay, great. In your case, see, we're talking about experience. So now you've done enough deals to have a statistic for how long your bank will take in your area, right? Because you're selling properties in your specific area. So how long your bank will take for mortgages, you now have that number.
Got it. All right.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you putting that perspective in there. So I was telling you at the start when we started recording, I was treated to a lovely steak dinner last night. And it was from one of our private money lenders. So I want you to, and they were thanking us because, let me back this up a little bit. So when we first started, they were our very first private money lenders, and they started with $80,000 to lend. That a portion of that even was from their HELOC that they borrowed had a very low interest rate. They pulled that money out, they lent it to us. And I think back then it was about 11%. So they have since grown it to they have brought in, like grown from that $80,000 to over $350,000 in about five and a half years. So, and the reason why they're taking us out to dinner last night was because they had just completed their 50th transaction. They like the quick ones. You have a 4-month flip, so they lend a portion here, they lend a portion here, and they're constantly turning it over. They've done 50 transactions just from that, and we were the first one, so they were thanking us for that, which I was like, lovely. And by the way, all those transactions in there was over, what did I say, $4 million, $3 million that had passed through in all those transactions. So very cool. What advice do you have for people who want to lend money? And what are some big red flags? Like in my badassery bestowment of like 0 reviews. So if you are lending your money out, what are some things that you really, to protect yourself, to make sure it's a great deal?
Okay. So when you're lending your own money, the first step is, again, know the numbers. I do not trust the deal analysis or underwriting from my borrowers. Okay. I run my own. And by the way, to break apart the two words, analysis and underwriting. The way I look at it is analysis is the story of the deal, and underwriting is the actual math and numbers to it. Okay, so, and math, for our listeners who might say, oh my God, I suck at math. No, math is just putting numbers to the story. Okay, nothing else, nothing crazy. So, I don't trust the analysis from anyone. I don't trust the numbers from anyone. I run my own. And, I have a Excel spreadsheet that I built out, and I built it for me. Okay. Right. Realistically, I built it for me because I kept running deals that borrowers came to me and said, okay, I want to borrow money. I said, great. And I would plug it into my own underwriter. So people can download it off of my website, mirsgroupllc.com/underwriter. You're welcome to download it. It is the spreadsheet I use. Okay. I stress this. It's not I'm not selling it. It's not some like, it's got logged cells, but then you got to pay me $1,000 to unlock them. Nope. You can see all the formulas. It's got circular formulas to figure out, maybe what purchase price you should have paid. It's the spreadsheet I use. So the first thing is you want to do that analysis yourself. Okay. That is the first step. You want to know the numbers yourself, because the other mistake I saw a lot of times when people would come to me, especially for, what's known as gap or second position funding, and they would come to me and they would say, well, we're going to be making this much on the deal. And what they would miss is how much they would have to pay for that second position money. Right. Not that I'm so expensive, just that it's still a number you have to pay as well. And they would miss it in the analysis. So, okay. So number one, run your own analysis. You're the one laying out the money. And here's a the golden rule of lenders, right? The golden rule is he who has the gold makes the rules. So run your own numbers, okay? And trust your gut. If it sounds wrong, it is wrong. So run your numbers. From there, we go to, the documents you're going to be collecting, right? You want three things. You want the promissory note, you want the personal guarantee, and you want the mortgage. Now,
what about insurance? Do you want to be?
Oh, we'll get to that too.
Okay.
So here's the way. So I wanted to go through kind of the doc. The docs are more, are important. And then there's two insurances, actually. There's the property insurance and there's title insurance. Okay. So because there is such a thing as a lender's title policy. So here's a little cheat for everybody. You want one analysis, you want two insurances, and you want three documents.
And again, those documents?
The documents are a promissory note, a mortgage, or a deed, depending on the state you're in. Your title company will help you with that, and a personal guarantee.
Good.
Yep. So that's kind of like the base level for lending your own money.
Very, very good. And you were talking about second position. So let's just break this down a little bit for some of the listeners who maybe are getting into real estate right now and think they have to use their own money, which is, I've never used I've used a portion of my money, but so you find a hard money lender or private money lender.
Yep.
And they are whoever's doing the largest chunk of lending is typically in what is that first position that you mentioned. A lot of times hard money lenders don't allow second positions because they want you to have a little skin in the game. I hate when they say that, but so typically a hard money lender will lend like 80 to 85% of the purchase price and then 100% of the rehab budget. So that's like a huge concept right there that a lot of people don't understand when they're getting involved in this. They think they have to pay for all the repairs. But and a hard money lender, by the way, it's a short-term loan where it's going to be a higher percentage rate because they're taking on more risk during the project. Then to close, you have to come up with that remaining 15 to 20%. And that's where a lot of people use a private money lender in that second position. And then the same thing, they want to be listed on the deed, which is going to be the mortgage, the deed, in that second position below the hard money lender. So let me ask you, do you allow second positions when you're a hard money lender?
Nope. And here, but I also,
you like a little bit of skin in the game?
No. It's not about the skin, actually. It also has to do with the foreclosure process afterwards. So there are workarounds. And look, this wouldn't be so much fun if we didn't give our listeners ways to work with all of this. So, okay. So one addition to hard money is backed by a hard asset. That's kind of where the name comes from. So hard money actually does 30-year mortgages now. Not they're loans to your LLC. They're not on you personally. And they're great 30-year mortgages at 80% of purchase or 75% of value on a refi. So we're talking about legit 30-year mortgages from hard money companies where you do not need your W-2s and 3 years of taxes.
Interesting.
So that's a huge part of my business. So for all of the all the investors listening who have rentals and they're trying to figure out how to buy them, and banks are saying, well, we don't want to lend to you because you're not bankable or you don't have a history of what, it doesn't matter. There's great options out there. That's just to preface that. Now, second position liens and how to lend that gap money. So lenders don't want the second position lien, not because of the skin. They don't really care about that as much. What they care about is what happens in case of foreclosure and what the process is there and having a subordinate lien. And, and what's funny is the second position lien actually has its own problem because in case of anything happening to the borrower, I'm not talking about fraud right now. I'm going to talk about unfortunate circumstance, right? Let's say I'm the first position borrower, right? I've closed on the property. I have the loan. I walk outside of the closing. I get hit by a bus. The first position lender now wants their money back. So they're now in control, able to do whatever they need to do to dispose of the property to get their money back. The second position lien has no say. They're kind of along for the ride. Now, if the property is sold for more money than the first position lien is worth, great, they get something.
Okay.
But at the same time, the first position lender doesn't really care. I'm not saying that they're harsh, they're uncaring, heartless people.
They want to just go after
care.
what they lent.
Correct.
Okay.
But on the other hand, there's a different workaround. So the way to work around it is you join the LLC doing the project as a minority member, 5, 10, let's just say 10% member, okay, just for the project. Your money is now coming in instead of second position lien. Your money is actually now coming in as a member of the project. You're a part owner. Now, so the contract that now is in place is no longer the note and the promissory note and the mortgage. Instead, it's now the operating agreement for the LLC. That's the contract between the partners in the LLC. Your protection now is no longer are you a member on the deed or mentioned on the deed or a promissory note. Instead, you're now literally a piece owner of this property and project. That's the security. Now, your money is now coming in as a partner. The first position lender, to them now it becomes transparent. It becomes irrelevant because now they're the only lien, and now all of the money has come in from the partners on the project.
Do people do this often?
Absolutely.
Huh.
I do it a lot of the time as well. I've partnered a lot of times with my clients where I'm the one brokering their first position hard money loan. And for that gap piece, right, that portion that needs to be brought in, I'll bring my own IRA. So, right, past experience, I've worked with these people before, and I have quite a few clients with whom I've done so many deals. It's just, okay, we'll do it again. We'll do it again. We'll do it again. And my money comes in for that portion. Now, I still want my client to have a little bit of their own money as well.
Skin in the game.
Skin in the game. That's right. But so you mentioned the 10 to 15 to 20% down they have to bring. Well, there's also other fees. There's points, right? The cost of the loan. So there's points. There's the insurance you have to buy up front, the property insurance. Okay. There's the title costs up front. There's the appraisal fee up front, right? All of those fees, it's fees, but they have to be paid. And typically I'll have my partners, whoever I work with, for example, they're the ones paying those fees while I'm bringing the 15 to 20% down. So we both have money in the deal.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. My brain is like swelling right now. That was a lot of nuggets there. So I asked for a couple bullet points on things to discuss here. And one you say is hustle and grind, that there is no substitute. So explain that.
Sure. There's no substitute for putting in the hard work.
Right.
I'll give you a story. So back to my beginnings in this country. My first job was when I was 14 years old. I would clean my mother was an insurance agent, and she worked in an office, and it was kind of like a travel agency, insurance brokerage. And my first job was cleaning that office on the weekends for $25. Okay. So she would come in to catch up on some work on Saturday, and I would come in with her and clean. The next summer, so what's funny is the building we were living in, on the first floor, there was a pharmacy, and all the neighborhood kids would get a job there, when they were old enough. And the youngest age you can work at in New York at that time was 15, and there was a limit on how many hours. Of course, the year I turned 15, the pharmacy closed down, the owners retired, and so the job I should have had disappeared. Okay. Well, okay, so how do I find a job? I'm 15 years old. I look all of 12, and, what do I do? And I went out, and I just went down the street, and I walked into store after store after store saying, "Hi, I'm looking for a job. Hi, I'm looking for a job." hi, I'm looking for a job. And the response was typically, sorry, we're not looking, nothing right now, nothing right now. And I would just keep, and door after door after door after door. And, it was block after block after block until I finally came to a restaurant, and the owner looked me up and down and said, okay, I need a dishwasher. It'll be 5 days a week, 12 hours a day, $2 an hour. Are you interested? And I said, yeah, of course. I mean, at the time, minimum wage was, I think, $5 or $6. So it wasn't that far off of it. And, and pretty much I went to work washing dishes for $2 an hour. And, it's funny. That part of it was great. To this day, there's something very zen about, just doing the dishes. But my son hates it. In my case, there's something very zen about just, doing them. But the part of the job that I hated absolutely was they would buy, it was a restaurant. They used a lot of onion. So there were these 25-pound bags of onions, and I had to clean them and then cut them. And my younger son, when I told him the story, and he turns around and goes, Dad, why didn't you just wear like swimming goggles to work so that, you wouldn't cry? And I said, because I wasn't smart enough to know that back when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
So there's no beating it, right? What did I do? I went door to door. Today, what does it take to lend? What does it take to get into this, right? What does it take in any business? Well, I get on the phone and I call client after client. I get on the phone and I call up, past clients, current clients, future clients, and there's no beating that hustle and grind. There's no beating, you work a full-time job. Well, I used to work a full-time job. When I used to work on my business at 9:00 at night, when the rest of my family, we had our kids, and then at 9:00 was bedtime. Everybody would go to sleep. My wife would go to sleep, and I would go to our office and I'd start, working. What does work mean? Well, it was me working on my spreadsheet to develop an analyzer. It was me listening to going on YouTube and watching Jim Rohn videos, Zig Ziglar videos, right?
Yep.
T. Harv Eker videos, Tony Robbins videos. I can keep dropping names, left and right. But the point is, the wealth of information available, right, on all of these experts in their fields dropping gold. And you can speed up a YouTube video, 1.5 to 2 times faster. So you can watch an 8-hour Jim Rohn seminar in 4 to 6 hours?
Right.
That's the hustle and grind. Was I tired in the morning? Yes, I was. Did I want to get ahead? Yes, I did. And I did what I had to do. Libraries, they're free. YouTube is free. Talking to people is free. There's no substitute for this. There's no substitute for the hours put in. You and I were just at a re-up 2-day seminar, right? And I took away from it my badge. So typically when I go to events, I have the badges and I keep them. I keep them to count, kind of as a badge of how many hours I've invested into my education, into working on this, into meeting with people. That re-up badge is worth another 16 hours. There's no substitute for this. There's no substitute for simply going out there and getting it done. Jim Rohn has a great expression about, minimum wage and working somewhere. He goes, and obviously Jim Rohn was speaking about this when minimum wages were different. He says, minimum wage is $5 an hour. You could go get a job at, McDonald's, they'll pay you $5 an hour. Put on a smile and say hi, and smile pleasantly. They'll pay you $5.50. But he goes, it's not about where you start. He goes, income is a ladder. You're supposed to start at $5 and then climb it. So nothing stops you from grinding and learning, right? Saving up your money when you're working that job and getting higher, continuing on.
Well,
that's the hustle and grind.
You are the epitome of hustle and grind from where you came from to where you are today. And it has been a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you for sharing all of your total badassery nuggets there. I appreciate it. Well, the second half of the podcast is what makes Mark Abramovich, I said it right, a badass. And I use the acronym badass, and the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Richest Man in Babylon.
That's a
And
good one.
I had to give you two. It's Richest Man in Babylon, and the second one is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
So good. Both of those. And listeners, I have people all the time say those same books, and you need to make sure you read them. They are so worth it. And I really like The Richest Man because it's a story, and it's just I love how it's written. So thank you for bringing that one up. The first A in Badass is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So the best piece of I had to struggle with this one. There was so much to sift through, but I think the one that I definitely has worked well for me has been giving a book as a gift to a new acquaintance.
Really?
So I went to when we moved from Brooklyn to Rockland County, we went to the local RIA meetup, and I come to the meetup, and there's an older guy there, and we got to talking, and he gave me a book as a gift, and it was The Art of Selling by Tom. Oh, shame on me for not remembering the title. But basically, it's The Art of Selling. And he gave me the book as a gift, and it startled me. And he basically, since then we've become friends, and he's a very experienced real estate investor. He's a rehabber. He's a realtor in the area. And we've become good friends, and he pointed it out to me. He goes, think about the impression you leave on someone if you give them a book as a gift, especially a book that gives them some education and a book that, changes their life for the better. So that was, to me, an amazing piece of advice, and I followed it since. I keep a copy of Think and Grow Rich on my shelf, and I have guests coming over, especially I'll do this. It's fun with kids. Right? You give a kid a book as a gift, and it blows their little minds. But now you've changed their entire course of their life because they get something out of it that will make such a huge impression. So I keep a book on the shelf, and I'll have a gift to give.
I love that. And by the way, his last name is Hopkins. So
thank you.
When we were talking about me in college taking the course on the World Wide Web, now I just pick up my phone and put in how to master the art of selling. So, and the book that you give all the time is Think and Grow Rich, or do you change it up?
Depends on what I have available at the moment, but it's a lot of the time it's Think and Grow Rich. I've given the Richest Man in Babylon away. It doesn't matter. It's whatever might be on my shelf at the moment. And then I'll give away potentially a book that is my book, right? My reference material.
Right.
And then I have to go and get a replenishment. So whatever I have available, right?
Mark, this is fantastic. And a book that I have given several people is You're Badass by Jen Sincero, which was mind-blowing to me, just how it affected me. In fact, I became the bestower of badassery just from.
I was gonna say
it has really influenced me, and it is it's a fantastic book. So I'm gonna have to load up on several copies and start passing those out. Mark, that is fantastic. I love that. We can just end here. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So the D in Badass is drive. What drives you to be successful?
So what drives me to be successful is the freedom to do whatever the hell I want to do. Honestly, it's funny. There's some part of like significance, right? When Tony Robbins talks about the six quadrants kind of your life you want to be focused on, one of them he talks about is significance. So do I want to be significant? Yes. Do I want people to know me and know my name and know that I'm an expert on lending? And, it's not even yes, I want all of that. But I gave it some thought, and I realized that what I really want is my kids to think I'm a great dad, right? And for my kids to think I'm a great dad, all they really want is to spend time with me, whether it's video games, whether it's throwing axes, whether it's going to the park, it doesn't matter. My kids want to spend time with me. And the only way I can spend time with them is if I don't have to keep spending my time earning money. Well, to me, success is enough income, right? Passive income from rental properties. Lending is a pretty active business for me. Okay. It is an active business. So I can't turn around and be like, oh, I've got, $1 million of my money out there and there's my passive income. Even finding new loans is not passive for me. So for me, the passive income is more of, I've got my money working in rental properties, right? Things like that. So I need that passive income so that I don't have to work to bring in income so that I can spend my time with my kids. And then, throwing into that is time with my wife. And then overall, doing the amazing, unique things that when I say regular people, don't misunderstand, that regular people don't get to do. The out of the ordinary things. Now, all of us have out of the ordinary things that we can do. Okay. When I say I want things that regular people don't do, it's merely because it's my friends, right? I can come and meet you and hang out in your house and get on your podcast because I know you. That's the unique thing that I have available. I have friends in Louisiana, and I'm sure you've heard this expression, right? Your network is your net worth.
Yes.
Well, everybody always jumps to and I did too. We jump to a dollar value to that network. What we don't realize is that network gives us the ability to do unique things other people don't get to do. We have friends, thanks to the real estate network we're members of and, have access to. They're in Louisiana and they invite us to go crabbing. I was able to take my kids crabbing on the Louisiana bayous. Okay. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
That is so cool.
Right. We woke up at 4 a.m., went on a 2-hour drive to where we needed to launch the boat. And we spent basically half the day catching crabs in the Louisiana bayou. To me, that's an amazing, unique experience. Now, is it available for others? Sure it is. But that to me was amazing and unique. That's what I want for my kids and family.
I love it. And you had mentioned that we just recently saw each other at the Re-Up conference that was in Columbia, South Carolina. And I got to meet Robert. I call him the boy wonder because I hear he just totally is a genius. Y'all took him to a trivia night, you and our other friend Aaron Cox, and took him to a trivia night. And Aaron was like, this kid knows everything. It's amazing. Yep. And so I love that. And I love that you are exposing him to your network as well.
Yeah, I would like to add to that then.
Yes.
So you saw me bring him to Re-Up. He's 13 now. So first off, yes, I brought him at 13. I don't know how much he absorbed, but I know he absorbed something. Mm-hmm. Years ago when he was 9 and we made a mistake. I mean, he was at 9 or 10 years old. We took him to sales and negotiation training. And we made the mistake that when he got bored, we gave him his iPad and he put it on and he listened to music. He didn't absorb as much as he should have. But what's funny is I know he absorbed some of it because then he kept throwing it in my face anytime he wanted to negotiate. Oh, yeah. Well, at 13, I took him with me because I wanted him to, again, start picking this stuff up. He went selling door to door when he was 7 of his own accord because he was listening to Jim Rohn in the car with us. Now, I mentioned, we talked about The Richest Man in Babylon being in narrative story form. Well, guess what? I was reading it to him at bedtime when he was 5.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. He was falling asleep and I was reading. But then again, that's the beauty of that book, that it tells stories. I've read to him Paulo Coelho's, Alchemist. Right?
Yes.
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Another great story narrative. Yes.
Exactly. And it's a story narrative that I could read to my kid as he was falling asleep and he was fascinated by it. Right. And it left an impression. Again, we as entrepreneurs, we talk about how we should do things different from everybody else. But still, I think when it comes to our kids, a lot of times we actually go down the same path that was drummed into us, right? What we got taught, which is, okay, school, high school, college, then you can get out there and kind of start on this path. No, we can do it now.
Right. And I'm going to throw another book in there, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
12 Pillars. Have you read that one?
No, I have not.
It's 12 Pillars. It's Chris Widener and Jim Rohn.
Okay.
Yes. And it's like this big. It's teeny tiny. You can read it in like one sitting. And anyway, that's just another great narrative.
That's going to be my next one then.
Perfect. All right. So let's keep going here. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
Systematizing my business. I'm working on getting a back end kind of a CRM, project management, whatever you want to call it, tool, something where all of us can work on loans in the same place, my staff and I, so that we can all see where we are, what the tasks necessary are, track everything, and I can extricate myself out of working in the business and spend more of my time working on the business.
I love that. Love it. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems, as we are speaking about systems, what systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Well, so Excel, it's amazing. It's amazing what Excel can do for you. And it's funny. I saw a meme where it's an elephant balancing on a little ball, and it's basically, the world's financial system, Excel. And so it's Excel, first and foremost. And I got to tell people, stop being cheap. Spend the less than $100 it costs to buy a full Microsoft Office package right now. And what you really need is Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Okay, those are the three things you need, and it costs less than $100 to get a full legit version. I'm not talking about an online subscription. I'm talking about a one-time purchase of like a 2016 or 2019 Excel, and it will do wonders for you. In addition to that, Gmail or somewhere you want to have your tasks. So, for example, I realized that I kept keeping everything in my head. So I needed to take it out of my head into somewhere, right? Look, yes, there's fancy tools, and obviously I'm in classes learning the amazing things that we can do, right? Listening to Bob McIntosh talk about the amazing things you can do with AI now, the amazing things you can do with his CRM,
right?
And all of this stuff, it's wonderful. I'm a little old school. I believe in picking up the phone and calling someone. I believe in having a face-to-face meeting. So when it comes to my tasks, you don't have to spend crazy dollars on all of this stuff. Excel and tracking your tasks, writing them out into some kind of, Google Tasks. Literally, we all have access to this for free. Google Tasks, and anytime you need to do something, just drop it in there. So my systems are Google Tasks, Google Calendar, and tracking everything I'm doing in Calendar, right? Using Excel. And then, by the way, here's a trick one, right? Calendly.
Yes.
Free account from Calendly, because Calendly will allow you to schedule calls. It will allow people to schedule a call with you for a convenient time. When I started using it, I felt such a douche. Is a good word, I think. There's no getting around it. I felt like such a douche telling people, well, here's my, here's the link to my Calendly. I'm all important. Schedule, right? But then I realized that it gave people the flexibility to schedule for when is convenient for them.
For them, exactly.
Right. And suddenly now, well, guess what? This time is your time. If you schedule this time with me and I have it available and I've made myself available, you schedule it with me. Guess what? This time is your time for us to talk. So Calendly is a free tool, right? So what are we talking about? Excel. We're talking about Calendly. We're talking about Google Calendar, Google Tasks. Right there is your backbone.
Yes. Agreed. And I don't know if you've ever met my husband, Vance, but he is an accountant and an Excel, super nerd. He geeks out over Excel. I'm like, how do I fix this cell? Oh, I got this. I'm like, just teach me how to do it so I don't have to ask you ever again. Anyway.
Jen, I love it. And I'm a geek about Excel as well. Oddly enough, there's something so satisfying to sit down and figure out the formulas and then get them to do. I mean, there's so much power.
Yes.
And, you heard me mention right at the beginning about how to calculate the holding time on a property.
Right.
Again, the mortgage is faster or slower, it doesn't matter. But to figure it out and to use the function roundup.
Yep.
Oh,
you are so funny. All right. Well, While you're geeking out over there, let's wrap this up. And
Yep.
the final S in badass is success. And what does success mean to you?
My wife and kids thinking I'm great.
Well, I think you are great too. And I truly
Thank you.
appreciate you being here today. How can the listeners find you if they want to use you as a hard money lender, or if they need some advice on things? How can listeners reach out?
The best and easiest place is my website, www.mirsgroupllc.com. MIRS is spelled M as in Mark, I as in Inga, R as in Robert, S as in Sebastian, Group LLC.com. You will be able to find my blog there with videos. You'll be able to find the Calendly link to schedule a call with me. It's not a call with, it's not a call with somebody else. You're literally reaching me. You can find my email there. Pretty much, it's kind of the hub for everything I do.
Well, Mark, thank you so very much for sharing your wisdom on the show today. I truly appreciate it.
Jen, this has been an absolute pleasure. It truly was. With the queen, to be here with the queen of badassery herself.
Oh, yes. Thank you. And that is all. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.